Yeah.
Awesome. I'm just setting up the YouTube live.
Of course, yeah.
Give me a minute.
I'm sure. Is my screen sharing?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, if anyone's got any questions, by the way, please just put them into the Zoom chat. I can see all the questions as they're coming up. So if you do have any questions, just put them in, and I can either, if it's relevant, I'll bring you into the conversation what I'm talking about. And we've also got some time at the end for questions too.
Yeah, Teddy, you're live. Go.
Are you okay for me to start now, Prem?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. So yeah, welcome everyone to this workshop. So today it's all about finding low risk and low competition products to get you started selling on Amazon. And I'm really, really excited to talk about this topic because I really think starting with low risk products is really the best way to start. Because even in my business today, I still aim to find low competition products and low risk products to sell. The reason being is I don't really want to spend lots of money on doing like dodgy marketing tactics. Like I really don't want to do anything like launches or spend loads of money on pay-per-click campaigns. And I just really want to make really great products that customers love so they come back to me and buy again. And that way I'm kind of creating a brand that I think is really valuable. So yeah, first things first, if you've got any in the comments, it'd be great if you could let me know what sort of products you're looking to sell, if you want to, if you're happy to share that, and then we can maybe come to some of those products as examples as we go through the presentation. So first, this is what we're going to talk about today. So first, just a little bit about me and my background about in the Amazon world and the e-commerce world. And then we'll go through the strategy that I use for finding low risk and low competition products. And there's also some bit at the end about the strategy for finding suppliers. Now, I think he's not sleeping. Sorry. And at the end, we've just got a bit about the strategy for finding suppliers as well, because finding suppliers and then finding products, I feel like they often go together, and you'll see exactly why in a second. But just a bit about me. So I used to be a management consultant working in the city for Accenture, and most of my clients were in the retail area. So I worked with companies like Argos and Carphone Warehouse, so a little bit in financial services as well, but mostly in the retail area. But I never really found my job to be, very exciting. I always wanted to work for myself, really, but I wasn't ever really sure exactly the best place to start. And I kind of had this dream of becoming a bit of a digital nomad and living abroad. But back then it wasn't really a thing as much as it is now to do remote working. And I'm guessing a few of you have felt the same with your jobs, and maybe that's why you're here. But I just think overall I wasn't really happy with the commute and office politics and all that nonsense. And so whilst I found my job quite interesting and I was paid pretty well, I never really felt fulfilled with what I was doing. But after like loads and loads of research about different businesses, I came across selling on Amazon. Now, I'm one of those people that doesn't like to hang around too much. So like pretty much everyone else does when starting out on Amazon, I just saw some products off Alibaba, and chucked them straight onto Amazon. And this is a picture, that ugly cat sitting on my first product. I was selling these seat covers, and they were kind of cat proof and kind of waterproof. And I did the research using Jungle Scout Niche Hunter, which is a bit like black box on Helium 10, and I put in all the correct stats about the amount of reviews and the amount of sales volume, basically trying to hack the system, and obviously thinking what a clever person I am, hacking the system and like using all this data that other people don't have access to, not even thinking that everybody has access to these tools. And I did all the stuff that you're meant to, like creating a logo on Fiverr and creating a brand name. And my brand was actually called Furniture Friend, which I thought was a pretty good name for seat covers. And I thought these seat covers, they're going to make me really rich. And, at first they did sell pretty well. And I was really happy thinking how clever I was to make this brand. But then suddenly there was loads and loads of competition, and they were all from Chinese suppliers with all these different colors and patterns. And I ended up having to sell my products just at break even, just to get some of my initial investment back. Now, I thought that does everyone mind go on mute?
Собственно, ninja. The thing I feel anything for you.
Prem, you able to mute everyone? Sorry, thank you. Now, where was I? Yeah, so at first they sold pretty well, but then there was all this competition from Chinese suppliers with the different colors and patterns. And, you know, I think it kind of put me off a little bit doing that, because I don't think people maybe don't have much loyalty to seat covers. They just buy the ones they want. So I was like massively undercut by like the Chinese sellers. So, and you know, also I didn't really feel that great about sourcing sort of cheap plasticky stuff from China. So in the end, I basically just scrapped that idea and had to think of a new strategy. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. Now, basically, that strategy is selling low competition products, which have quite a low risk. And following this strategy has helped me to build a really sustainable brand, which has enabled me to quit my job and work full-time in the e-commerce world. And, you know, this has been a really great change, and I've been able to meet some really cool people doing it. And I've actually been able to finally fulfill my dream of moving abroad and becoming a bit of a digital nomad, because I'm now, at the moment, I'm in France in the Alps, which is where I'm working remotely and skiing in my spare time. But let's dig into this strategy a bit more. So when I speak to new students, a lot of them have the same issues that I see come up like again and again, because sometimes they just don't have the confidence to go forward. And usually there's something holding them back. One of the main issues new potential sellers have is getting the product ideas and then assessing them. And I think if you're just using the tools, you can end up going around in a bit of a loop. Like a lot of the products you end up looking at can be quite saturated with a lot of competition. And I think, you know, starting out in a competitive category like yoga mats or something like that, you know, something that has been on the latest Helium 10 Project X video, for example, I really don't think it's necessarily a good idea, because you have to remember, that you aren't the only person with these ideas or you're using these tools. Like there's also quite frankly, quite a bamboozling amount of tools and advice out there. You know, you've got, from just the tools off the top of my head, you've got Helium 10, Jungle Scout, Am Scout, Merchant Words, Selix, Seller App, Blackbox, Cerebro, Hello Profits, Keywords Everywhere, Sonar. If anyone can think of any more, let me know in the list, but there's tons and tons of these tools. And I think a lot of this stuff is basically a bit of a distraction, because a tool is not a good replacement for product research. And you've got to remember that everyone else has access to these tools as well. And another thing that holds people back is finding good manufacturers. Now, I think this is one of the most underlooked parts of starting a business, and it's something that doesn't really get talked about enough. Now, if you think about it like this, you have to remember that your partners are going to be with you for the long run, and they form the starting point of your supply chain and your logistics network. Now, if you start to think of your manufacturers in this way, rather than as disposable people you just find on Alibaba, you're going to have a much, much more successful business. Now, supply chains and logistics is one of the main things that makes your business worth money. And if you say, just think about Dragon's Den, for example, when the dragons invest their money in a business, the original business owner is basically giving away equity in order to have a part of that person's supply chain, to like plug into their supply chain. So that means they can get their products in Sainsbury's and Tesco's and stuff like that. And that's how important a supply chain is. Like it's good enough to give away your equity in your business for. Now, if you go after these really high competition products, the manufacturers often have quite like high minimum order quantities, especially if you're going for this like plasticky stuff from China. And this can mean a really high initial investment, which in my opinion is a much higher risk. Like I'd much rather start with a low MOQ, a low starting amount of money, learn the fundamentals of how to do Amazon. And then, you know, as your risk profile gets bigger, then you can start expanding. So this is basically the traditional strategy for finding products on Amazon. Now, I've got a little fingers crossed emoji there, because that's kind of how I feel about this traditional strategy. It's kind of just like put it on Amazon and hope. But let's have a look at what traditional sellers have done. And let me know in the comments if you recognize any of these things that I'm talking about here. So first, you'd use a tool like Jungle Scout Niche Hunter or Helium 10 Black Box to find products that fit within a certain criteria. So, you know, you probably know what I'm talking about. You'll look at things like you'll put the search volume to over 1,000, and you'll put the sale to over £5,000 or dollars a month, and then you'll put the reviews to under 4 stars, and then you'll just see what comes up, and then you'll dig into the sales of other people to see how their sales are, and you can see that they are making thousands and thousands of pounds a month, and you think, oh, that's awesome. I'd love to make thousands of pounds a month, and you know the dollar signs start going through your eyes. And then you run some profitability numbers, and you reckon they're making 25% profit margin a month, maybe. And you know, you think that sounds pretty good. They're making 10 grand a month, and if there's 25% profit, then I can quit my job, and that's even better. And then you go onto Alibaba and you find the products that they are selling, it's available for $5. And that's right in your target profitability. And this means with all that profit, you've got enough money to give away and do some reviews, and you can get onto page one with no problem. Now, if you recognize that strategy, that's normal, because that's what most people do. And what a lot of the strategies you hear are basically that, just summarized in a nutshell. Now, I think this is an extremely risky strategy, to be honest, and it's a quick fire way to end up with waterproof and cat-proof seat covers, because you have to remember, you're not the only one using Black Box or Jungle Scout. Like, loads of sellers find products on Alibaba, and some of the manufacturers on there even just push products that are trending. Like, sometimes you'll see them in their title, it will say trending product. And a lot of manufacturers on Alibaba, they just jump on the trends and like bandwagons in order to scoop up new sellers who don't have much experience. And some of the manufacturers on Alibaba, they're not even manufacturers. All they are is trading companies. So they're like middlemen who basically source like trendy products like fidget spinners in order to take advantage of new sellers who don't really know what they're doing. And that sounds risky to me. That's not how you build a brand, and that's not what I would want to do. And the second thing about this is, if you're just leaving enough money so that you can do giveaways, what you're basically doing is spending money on stuff that I don't think you necessarily need. And you're not really getting good reviews. You're just trying to game the system. And in the long run, I don't think this is the best tactic at all, because Amazon's not stupid. They're the opposite of stupid. They have so much data on you. So in the end, this you'll get caught out doing these sort of tactics. And I think it's not worth the risk of going over, like, breaking Amazon's terms of service. Now, the last thing is PPC can be really expensive. Now, I think PPC is great. It's like, if you're using it tactically to improve your sales, then that can be awesome. But if you're just relying on it to make your sales, then this can really, really, really hit your margin. And let's be honest here, Jeff Bezos probably has enough of your money and you need it more. So I think you're better off getting low competition products. In that way, you'd have to spend much less money on pay-per-click in order to get onto page one. So I basically have a bit of a different strategy. And as I said, I use this every single day in my business. And it's always the starting point for where I start from when I'm looking for a new product or a new product range. And this is basically it. So number one, the main point about this is you should make product hunting a habit. Now, I think habit is really important in your business. And if this is something that you are struggling with, there's a really, really amazing book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And I don't know if any of you have read that book, just let me know. But I think it's absolutely awesome and it really changed my life. But one of the principles James talks about in the book, is the 1% rule. Now, this rule is, say if you get 1% better each day, then you'll improve exponentially over time. And you'll improve much quicker getting 1% better each day than you would trying to improve yourself like 20% over a very short amount of time. And I think with product hunting, it's very much about doing it little and often and making product hunting sort of part of your daily habit. Because, say, for example, when you're in a shop, just think about how much it would cost to make something like that, or what you think the profit margin would be. I think I've probably gone a bit too far with it. The other day in the supermarket, I found myself picking up some eggs and wondering how much the farmer makes for a packet of eggs. But that's probably gone too far. But when you're in the shop, try and think about these products as like potential products you can sell. Now, the second part of my strategy is not to get fixated by hero numbers. So what I mean by hero numbers are the real big numbers that you see on Helium 10 and stuff like that. Now, if you see lots of products making tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of pounds or dollars per month, this could be a massive red flag that this could be too competitive. Now, I would much rather have 7 products doing £3,000 a month than one product doing £20,000 a month. Now, that's not just because 7 times 3 is 21. It's actually because there's much less chance of people finding you. Because if you think about how you have traditionally done your product hunting, using the tools to find the 3K minimum and like doing the how many reviews and all this sort of stuff, staying under the radar a bit really helps you to have less competition in the long run. Now, if you have a product that sells 20 grand a month, you are going to have people trying to compete with you. It's just absolutely inevitable. Now, the third part is to find product inspiration in unusual places and not just on Amazon. Now, we'll come on, this is basically the main part of the talk, so we'll come on to that in a second. The fourth bit is don't just rely on China and Alibaba, because this is what everyone else does. And, you know, you'll find better and more interesting suppliers in other places. And again, we'll come on to that as well. But this is the most important part, and this is what I think you should try and take away from this talk if you can. But finding a niche is more important in many ways than finding a product, because if you find a niche, you can build a brand around that niche. And a brand is something that is really valuable that you can end up selling in the long run. And, you know, my aim is to sell my business and then build another business that I can sell. And I think if you can have that aim, it's really good, because if you can sell your business for a nice chunk of money, then that's awesome. You know, you can pay off your mortgage, you can become self-reliant, you can do all of these things that you can't do otherwise. And, you know, getting that money can be absolutely game-changing in your life. But how do you use this strategy? Well, let's look at a case study. So Dock and Bay, you've probably heard of this company, but they're a towel company and they're based in London. And they were on Dragon's Den a few years ago, and they got some investment by Deborah Meadham. And coincidentally, I was actually on a stag do with one of the founders, Andy, in Lisbon last year. So I was able to chat to him about his business. But what they did basically was get something boring and make it nice, which doesn't, you know, it doesn't sound game changing, but it's true. Now, microfiber towels have been around for ages. They've been around absolutely ages, since the 60s, actually, believe it or not. I Wikipedia'd this the other day to find out when they were actually invented. But when they, I don't know if you know much about microfiber towels. Basically, they dry really quickly and they don't smell. So they're really good for, like, you know, being out and about and traveling and things like that. But most of them were aimed at walkers and campers because of these properties they had. And although they were good products for everyone, all of the marketing for those products was aimed at, like, walkers, campers, hikers, people like that. And all the previous towels, because of who they're aimed at, were in really boring colors like army green and khaki and things like that. Now, if you'd gone back onto Alibaba a few years ago, when just before Dock and Bay started out, you wouldn't have seen any cool microfiber towels on there like you do now. Like if you go on Alibaba now, there's loads of people selling, like, essentially knockoffs of this product, but you'd have just seen like army greens and things like that. And the owners of this brand, they went to a trade show in China where they met with loads and loads of suppliers who make these towels and spoke to them about how they wanted to change the design. Now, this product, you know, already existed. They didn't invent this product at all. And that's the point. Like, the point of this is you don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's plenty of Dock and Bays out there ready for you to be found. You just need to be looking in the right places. And in my opinion, hunting Alibaba for the latest trend probably isn't one of those places where you're going to find the next Dock and Bay. And interestingly, Dock and Bay actually started out as an Amazon brand before expanding and having their own sites and stuff like that. And now they're making around like £10 million a year or something. They're pretty amazing. I would definitely recommend Googling their story. There's loads of articles like in Forbes and stuff like that about their story. It's really, really inspiring. Okay. So how do I find product ideas? Well, basically, I've got main places, 5 main places that I tend to go to get my product ideas. And these are the ones that I think have low risk and low competition. And we'll go through each of these in turn. So the first one is trade shows. Now, there's some in the UK, Europe, and further afield. Don't worry, you don't have to travel yet. Now, the second one is niche stores. So I think it's really important that you try and get off Amazon. You can end up getting in a bit of a feedback loop by just staying on Amazon all the time. The third one is Etsy and Pinterest. Now, these are amazing, and I think they're, you know, these are like my secret weapon in product hunting at the moment. So I think they're fantastic. And the fourth one is special interest magazines and websites, and I've got a good story about that one. And then the last one is Kickstarter and crowdfunding sites. So let's get into these now. So the first one is trade shows. Now, I know what you're probably going to tell me, like traveling is off at the moment and you can't go to trade shows. Now, whilst this is definitely true, there's still loads of trade shows in the UK and in Europe. And plus a lot of the big trade shows have virtual shows. Now, a really great website to look at is 10 Times, which has all of the trade shows around the world. And you can filter by industry or country, or even just use the search. So this tool is really, really powerful. And it's a and trade shows are amazing places to get product ideas, because as you can see, look, if I look at some of this filtering, you can filter by like arts and crafts or wellness. Like, so if you wanted to create I don't know, some kind of protein brand, you could just see which wellness trade shows there are. Now, it's really good for going there to see the latest trends. And a lot of the products that you see here are well ahead of what is on Amazon. Like, I think it's really important to try and understand that not every product is on Amazon, and there's loads of opportunities off Amazon to bring stuff onto Amazon. Some of the good ones in the UK to go to, some of the good ones in the UK to go to are the Spring Fair and the Autumn Fair, which are in Birmingham, the NEC. They're really, really cool. They're really fun to go to, and I went to there a few years ago just before lockdown. And then the other one is the Ideal Home Show. The Ideal Home Show is a bit weird, but it's a really good place to go and get product ideas. You can go and see, you know, what people are selling to like working mums and stuff like that. So it's a really cool place to go to. And I go to these all the time if I can, and I'm constantly checking 10 times to see what the next like trade show is. So that's number one. Now the second one is get off Amazon. Now, I really, really like to find niche stores that sell products. Now, mostly this is because Amazon isn't always at the front of trends. Now, I think, in fact, Amazon, I think, is a bit behind everyone else. The reason is because, you know, a lot of the people on Amazon are kind of doing what I'm talking about now, where they're finding products, then getting them onto Amazon. Whereas independent stores, they spend loads of money and time on being ahead of the trends. And this is one of the main reasons that people go to them. You know, people go to these independent stores because they like the fact that they are the newest stuff. And a really, really good place to start for this is Google Images. Now, if we look at this example here, I just typed in beekeeping. It was one of the first things that came to my head. And if you look at the top, there's these sponsored ads. Now, if you look at the top, there's sponsored ads. And the reason this is important is because these people at the top, like Rouchette and Rouge and the other one, they've paid to be there. So this is basically free product research, because these shops, they think these keywords are worth targeting, and they're paying money to Google in order to be at the top of the page. Now, this is kind of great information to know if you're trying to make a product in the beekeeping world. And, you know, another good thing about these sites is that, another good thing about Google is you can go through, and if you click on images, it kind of opens up other stuff that's related. But another good thing about these sites is they're often very niche down. Like a lot of this one here, this apiculture.net, they just sell beekeeping stuff. So they're really, really niche. And if you were making a beekeeping brand, for example, then they would have all of the products that you could find. Now, another good thing about these sites is they often have like customers who bought this also bought this section. So if you see this bit here, you can see the customers that looked at this also looked at these other hives. And this is basically like free product research for you. And this is kind of like the shops building a product range on your behalf. I think this is a really, really good way to get inspiration for product ideas. And it's also a good way to get inspiration for, you know, colors, designs, or trends from these sites. Because, you know, as I said, these sites really like to be at the head of the trends. And you never know, a purple bee hive might be the next big trend in beekeeping. Now, the third one is Etsy and Pinterest. Now, these two are probably my favorite product hunting grounds out of all of them. Now, my brother is a shield maker and he sells them on Etsy. None of these are his shields, but I thought I'd use him as an example today because I thought it was a bit of a weird product that, you know, people might not have thought to put on. But first up here, we've got Pinterest. Now, Pinterest is full of people just bragging about how cool their products are. And, you know, they might not even sell them. They just put them up and say, look how cool my products are. And this is a really great way to get inspiration for designs because, you know, another thing that happens with Pinterest is what I call the Pinterest hole. Now, the Pinterest hole is a great way to mine for product ideas because if you see this example here, you see underneath there's like people that looked at that also looked at this. Now, every picture you click on Pinterest will show you a whole new set of pictures underneath for you to start clicking on. Now, this is called the Pinterest hole, and I call it that because once you start clicking on Pinterest, you can end up going down a bit of a wormhole into lots of different products. But this is really, really good for product hunting ideas. So you can go down that hole and try and get some like really good ideas for products. Now, Etsy is full of product ideas that are usually quite easy to make and often without patents or patents. Now, they're often also quite inexpensive to make or source. So I think it's a really great place to try and like get product ideas from. And another good thing about Etsy is there's some super creative people on there who are like artists and stuff like that. So the designs that you'll see on Etsy are often different and better than the ones you'll see on Amazon. So you can kind of get inspiration for what colors people are using or what motifs people are using, or, you know, there's lots of inspiration to be got from like these other marketplaces, but especially Etsy. If anyone's got any questions, by the way, please just put them into the chat and we can cover them off. Now, the fourth one is special interests. Now, this is quite a good one because this magazine is my fiance's dad's magazine, but he's basically, he's got this huge steam engine that he works on. And the parts for it are like eye-wateringly expensive. I thought it was a joke when he was telling me the other day, but he had to buy a spanner the other day that only works on his specific engine, and it like doesn't work on any other machine. And it was like 50 quid, and I couldn't believe it how much money he spent on this spanner. But the point of me telling you that is that people who have these like hobbies and passions, they care about the money because the hobby is like part of their identity. So if you can tap into this identity, then you can really start to build a brand around it. Now, I've got some examples here, like sailing, diving, golf, bird spotting, mountain biking, fish keeping, bonsai tree keeping. Like there's loads more on there. But some of these hobbies, you know, are quite expensive hobbies that rich people do. Like if you think of sailing, for example, it's the sort of people who do sailing, they probably want to have quite nice stuff. So if you can make accessories for these kind of hobbies or interests, then you can really build a brand around that and start to be really, you know, niched down into that one brand. Yeah, these are a few examples, but obviously there's loads more. It's endless how many there are. But if you can find some blogs or magazines about these hobbies, then you can start to find what problems are people having in those niches, and you can start to solve those problems and maybe build a brand around it. Now, an example of this, of how you can find sites, is something that is close to me at the moment because I'm getting married this summer. So I was meant to get married last summer actually, but I'm getting married this summer, and I've been trying to make a wedding list so I can get some presents. And there's some really, really expensive stuff you can put on your wedding list. But when I was on there were these like pre-made lists that you can put on, and there's kind of like trends lists as well. And when I went on there was like loads and loads of product ideas for really cool interior design products that were like trending at the moment. And I thought some of them would make really great Amazon products. And, you know, just looking at the trends really kind of inspired me for colors for products in my own range at the moment. Now, this is just one example of a particular interest website where you can see some trends, and you know, you could build a whole brand around some of these interests. I think it's a really good way to go. So try and get quite creative about some of these sort of interest websites that you look at. Now, the fifth one that I look at is Kickstarter and crowdfunding sites. Now, they're always really good places to get product ideas from because you can get some really good inspiration from some of these sites. Now, I was only on there this week, and this was actually the first product that came up on the site. So I was pretty happy because I didn't have to do too much digging around. But I thought this was a really weird product, Samphire Salt. I've never heard of this. And now I don't know if this is going to be the next big thing, but it really definitely piqued my interest. And I thought if something like that, you know, people are, you know, high salt is a bit of an issue in health. And if you can make like a healthy salt alternative, I can see how that could be quite popular. Now, if you could make something like this could potentially be a good product for Amazon. Now, people on Kickstarter are on there to try and get funding for their ideas. And there's loads of people on there who are planning to make their products into quite big businesses. Like they don't want to just start a low risk brand. They kind of want to make a big business. And so it could be quite a good opportunity for you to get some inspiration for what they're making and use it in your own business. Now, what you can even see how popular a particular idea is because you can, on Kickstarter, it shows you how much funding a product idea has got. So if an idea is looking quite popular, that could be an indication that that is a good trend to go down. So I think it's a really good place to go and have a look. And, you know, all these things I've talked about today are basically free. I mean, apart from the trade shows, which, you know, it's cool going to trade shows. You get to go meet the suppliers in person. So yeah, those are basically my 5 tips for getting product ideas. Does anyone have any questions about any of them or anything at all so far? Congrats on my wedding. Thank you. It was put off last year, unfortunately. But hopefully it's going to happen this year. It's only 2 weeks after the unlock date, so it's pretty borderline, but we're going for it. We'll see what happens. So the next part of this presentation is all about sourcing. Now, I did touch on this a little bit earlier when we're talking about getting product inspiration from trade shows, but they're also obviously really great, amazing places to source products. Now, I think a really good tactic with sourcing products is not to just rely on Alibaba, because this is what everyone else is doing. And if everyone else is doing, then that could mean that, you know, you're just going to be doing the same thing as everyone else. You also don't just need to look at China. Like, there's tons and tons of really, really good manufacturers all over the world. And I did go through this in a previous talk with Prem and my friend Konark, who's another specialist in sourcing from India. But currently, I don't actually source any of my products from China at all. I've got one product which I might be sourcing from China soon, but we're not over the line yet. But one of the big benefits of not sourcing from China is that your minimum order quantities are usually a lot smaller from these countries. Now, this means you can spend way less on your first order, which means that there'll be much less risk, because if you've got a small MOQ, you've got a smaller initial investment, so there's less risk for you. Now, there's some really, really amazing trade shows around the world, and if you use 10 times to find them, that's the best place. But if you have a look at some of those, you can start to find suppliers that you can work with again and again and again. Now, this is really, really important, because meeting manufacturers is amazing. Now, you can get, if you meet them either, you know, virtually or in face-to-face, you can get much better deals and much better inspiration for making a bigger range of products. And you can really start to build your relationships with the supplier. And I think this is really, really important, because, as I said, your supplier forms the big start of your supply chain, which is the value in your business. So if you neglect this part of your business, then you're starting your business from a bad point. Now, the more you work with your supplier, the more likely they're going to want to work with you as well. And the more you do that, the more they're going to prioritize your orders when stuff goes wrong. Like, it happened to me, you know, during coronavirus, where there's a problem, and they prioritize my order getting out over another person's order, because I've been working with them for 2 years. There's also quite a lot of cost savings to be made with shipping if you're sourcing products from the same manufacturer, because if you're sourcing from the same manufacturer, all of the products get made at the same time, and then they can send all the stuff in one go. And then just one example of this, I did an order a few months ago for 500 units, and the shipping for this was about $1,000. But in my next order, which was 1,000 units, so double the quantity, and it was the same product, the shipping was about $1,200. Now, this is nearly half the price per unit for the shipping. So, you know, there's huge cost savings to be made in shipping. And if you can even get to the point when you're shipping containers, which I'm not there yet, but containers aren't actually anywhere near as expensive as you think they're going to be. So there's huge cost savings that can be made with shipping once you start to scale and use the same manufacturer. You can even, as I said, you can meet them at virtual shows. It's better to try and go face to face if you can, but, you know, whilst we can't, virtual shows are the second best thing. And, you know, if you do get to go to a show, they're really good, because you know, if you get to go to a show that's abroad, it's basically like a free holiday, and you get to meet the suppliers and go to a cool country. Like, I went to the Delhi Fair in 2019, and here's some pictures of me and some of the products I was looking at when I was there. And it was a really, really cool experience going to Delhi and, you know, meeting other e-commerce sellers and meeting suppliers and, you know, eating lots of Indian food. And afterwards, I spent a bit of time going to Goa on holiday afterwards. So it was a really, really good trip. And I'd really recommend everyone to go to some trade shows if you can. And as I said, there's loads in Europe and in the UK as well. So we're coming towards the end of the presentation now, but I thought I would just summarize the strategy a little bit here. So basically, your first product does not need to make you a millionaire. I think it's really important that you just kind of learn the process first and all of the fundamentals that go with choosing a good product. by using the 1% rule, like the incremental, won't get 1% better every day, and learning the fundamentals every day in like an organized way, this will pay huge dividends in future. That book I recommended, by the way, is called Atomic Habits. So definitely check that out. The second thing is, I don't think you want to be competing with a load of super sellers, as you know, this will ruin your margin and get you off to a really bad start with Amazon. And especially if you have to do expensive launches and high PPC spend, like you're just not going to have any margin left at the end of the day. And you know, you're not here for fun, you're here to make money. So I don't think you want to be cutting your margin any time soon. And also the last thing is spending lots of money on your first products, I think is really, really risky. Now, if you can have a bit less risk by meeting the suppliers, building the relationships, now I think this will help you get a much lower MOQ, which will reduce the risk of your first products. Now, when you just start to do all these things, you can really start to build a brand, and which is what I think should be your main aim when you're starting out on Amazon. You know, once you have your niche, it's much easier to product hunt, and because you can go to the trade shows, go to the right trade shows, find the right manufacturers, and really start to build something that you can be quite proud of. Now, trends are great, like trends are really important, but you don't want to be selling trendy things. Like there's a difference between trends and trendy. Like you don't want to be selling the latest trendy gadget that's just advertised on Alibaba. Like, I mean, I don't know if anyone remembers fidget spinners, but it was like a massive flash in the pan for like products. And basically a summary of my strategy is just keep your risk low by finding low competition products in a niche that you can build a brand in. And then one day that brand might be worth something. And, you know, that can happen much faster than you think. Now, I hope you found that helpful. Now, I've really enjoyed chatting about some of the tactics I discussed today. And if you did find that helpful, then I think you might find my program valuable. And it's called Amazon Fundamentals. Now, the reason I called it that is because it does exactly what it says on the tin. It teaches you all the information and the fundamental things that you need to know about selling on Amazon without all of the fluff that comes around with selling an online course. And I've had quite a few amazing sellers from Prem's clients go through the program with me. And the feedback so far has been really great. And in the program, we go really deep into some of the principles we talked about today, especially finding products in the low competition niches. And the aim of that program is to just get you selling on Amazon with little risk as possible. So I think you'll find it really helpful when you're just starting out. But we've now got some time to go through some questions. So I'll just go back and have a look at those now. So first, could we go back to the low competition slide? Yeah, this one. Is this one you mean, Matt? So this one is, yeah, basically a summary of what I think my strategy is. Is basically just your first product is not about making you a millionaire. It's about competing with loads of others. It's not about competing with loads of other sellers. And it's not about spending loads of money on your first product. And that's kind of like a summary of the strategy I use for finding products. Let me just go through some of these questions. So what's the short forms you're using MOQ? MOQ means minimum order quantity, Sindhu. So with Amazon, like with my first order, I usually try to get a minimum order quantity as small as possible, and I always go under 200 maximum for my first product. There's a few reasons for this. First, it's low risk, and secondly, it means that Amazon FBA warehouses only accept orders of 200 units for your first order, and this is called your inventory score. It's a bit, you don't really need to know about it now. Basically, what you need to know is you should be aiming for under 200, which can be quite difficult to get if you're sourcing from China. PPC, I mean pay-per-click. So this is advertising where you pay per click. Adrian has a question. Please advise which software do you use, Jungle Scout or Helium 10? So I use Helium 10. I think Helium 10 is far better than Jungle Scout. That's just my personal opinion, but I think Helium 10's tools are really, really amazing. It is a bit expensive, but you can get 50% off for your first month. I've got a code if you want to get 50% off your first month, but it's an affiliate code, so you don't have to use it. But if you just Google Helium 10 discount code, you can get 50% off your first month. And you know, when you're doing your product research, I think 1 month might be enough to do your product research. So you can get 50% off everything. and then you can kind of pick a mix, which bits of Helium 10 you pay for ongoing. So I think Helium 10 is better personally, but Jungle Scout is also good. I don't know if Prem, do you use Jungle Scout or Helium 10?
I use Helium 10 mostly.
Yeah, I think most of the sellers I use Helium 10 now.
It's a bit on the costly side, but it's worth.
Yeah. Pal has a question. Is there a trade-off? Does low competition mean low demand? Low demands means less being sold and so less revenue. So Pal, yes, in basically a little bit, yes, it does. It does mean a little bit less demand, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. So none of the products I sell are low demand. There's still lots of people looking for them and buying them. But if you remember what I said back on like the 5th or 6th slide, I would rather have 7 products doing $3,000 a month than 1 product doing 20 grand a month. So if that is like low demands to you, then I'm not sure. But for me, that is like the sweet spot of demand, because if you're selling something for $3,000, then that means that you're going to have less people trying to compete with you. But in my opinion, $3,000 is still quite a lot. Like if say you've got a 30% margin, then you're looking at maybe making sort of £800 to £1,200 a month profit per product. For me, that's really good. And if you are selling like 10 of those, then you're starting to have a really, really good business. It also makes you a bit more agile. Like you're not just reliant on one product. So yeah, there is a bit less demand. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I quite agree with that. All our products are like that. And that helps in spreading the platter and avoiding the seasonality. There are a lot of benefits in that strategy. The only caveat is that you have to find one manufacturer that can do all these products for you. If you are dealing with multiple suppliers, then you're getting yourself into a chaotic admin.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that as well. And that's kind of why niching down is good, I think, rather than just doing random products.
Absolutely.
Got a question. How do you find your suppliers in India or Vietnam? Online or trade shows only? So kind of a bit mixture of both. So say you are looking for a product, like there are Indian and Vietnam suppliers on Alibaba. There is also another one called India Mart and Global Sources, and I don't really use them that much, but one thing I do sometimes, if I'm looking for something specific, so I've just got a water bottle in front of me, but say I'm looking for a metal water bottle, then I might type into Google metal water bottle manufacturer and then the country, so metal water bottle manufacturer India. That might be one thing that I would put in. Another thing I might do is go to trade shows. A lot of them are virtual, so you don't actually have to go. And another good thing about trade shows is a lot of them have exhibitor lists, so you can go onto a trade show website, have a look at the exhibitor lists, and then go to a it'll take you to their website, so you can see what they sell. And you're not necessarily looking for the exact product someone sells. You're kind of looking for someone who can make the thing you're looking for. So Bola's got a question. Can you help someone who has no idea on which item to sell to identify a product? Well, Bola, I think some of the strategies I talked about before, like if you start having a look on Etsy and Pinterest, they're really, really good for product ideas. And I think if you can find things on like Kickstarter is really good for getting products inspiration. There's loads of stuff on there that, there's loads of Doc and Bays around on places like Kickstarter and Pinterest of all of these people that are kind of bragging about how good their products are and not really, not necessarily doing a great job of selling them. So if you are really, really stuck for ideas, just start checking out Pinterest and Etsy. I would say it's probably the best place to start, and Kickstarter is also really good. Sorry, go on.
Bola is looking for an answer like, would you be able to be a consultant, a coach for someone who has no idea of what to sell?
Oh, I see. Definitely could. I've got loads of in the program that I do. We go really deep into how to, get product ideas, and we go into a lot more detail into things like how to source products, how to get inspiration for ideas, and I've got a few of my favorite niches which I like to look at in my products. I hope that helps, Bola. So Pal says, great answer. So would it be fair to say that 3K a month is a nice sweet spot for a product? I wouldn't say it's a nice sweet spot. 3K is kind of like, now for me now is kind of like my minimum, but it is a good place to start, definitely. You know, if you aim for that sort of area, you know, it could go much more. Like, I'm not saying that having a product that sells 20 grand a month is bad. It's definitely not. Like, it is good, but it's just not what I would be aiming for with my first product. So 3K, it's kind of like a sweet spot, but it's also kind of a bit more of just it's a rule of thumb rather than a this is what you have to aim for. Okay. Jane says, what do you do if you find a great product that doesn't really fit in your range? So that's a really good question, actually, Jane. So you can, on Amazon, you can have multiple brands under the same store name. So if you wanted to, you could sell 2 completely different brands. When you're starting out, I think although it is best to niche, like if you do find a product that you think is a really good opportunity, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it because it doesn't fit into your niche at first. Because, you know, when you're new, your niche could change. So it's about being agile. And that's kind of one of the reasons that I like to have these sort of low competition, low risk products. Because if you do need to, you know, chuck a product, you can do quite easily. So I think you can, some brands do sell multiple different products, and you know, I think in the long run, it's not what you want to be doing. But at first, it's not necessarily a problem. It's just I use the niching to help me sort of find products as well. Okay, Andrea. Okay, very inspiring and such valuable information. Thank you. Oh, thanks, Andrea. I appreciate that feedback. I have a question about shipping costs. Are these to be agreed in advance? I developed a product with a manufacturer in China, and on the second they doubled the shipping costs for the same quantity, and now I no longer wish to go ahead after having paid 30% in advance. Yeah, so this is a bit of a difficult situation you're in. So they've, I mean, you've obviously got the option of getting third-party shipping, and if you want a few, I haven't really got a recommendation for shippers. I don't think any of them are particularly very good, but the one I use is not too bad. I think you can always get another quote. So you don't have to use manufacturer's shipping. Now, I often do get the shipping from manufacturer because I think you can get quite cheap rates from the manufacturer at first, but it is really good to build up a relationship with a freight forwarder if you can. So I think in this situation, is it just the shipping cost they've doubled, or is it the entire thing? If it's just the shipping costs they've doubled, I think you can still probably get a quote from somewhere else. If they've doubled the price of the products, then I'm not really. Then I think you would just have to walk away from that deal at that point. Unless if it wasn't profitable and they're because refusing to play ball, like I think that would be something I wouldn't want to continue with. But you've done a good job only paying 13% in advance. Yeah.
I would recommend approaching a freight forwarder and finding a quote from them and telling the supplier that I have my own freight forwarder.
Do you who's your freight forwarder, Prem?
It's Bestbound.
Bestbound, are they good?
Yeah, they're really good. We use Shippo recently, and they're good as well. Westbound has a really good team. They can be a bit on the higher end for the pricing, but for the first timers, it's easy to just offload it to them, and they can deal it for you.
Cool. Yeah. Nice. And the other thing is, I was going to say, if you did the order via Alibaba, then you'll probably be able to get your money back, because these if they've gone against their contract, Alibaba are actually pretty good at their customer support. Now these suppliers really don't want to get kicked off Alibaba because that's like their main source of income. So if you did pay on Alibaba for your first order, you're in a relatively powerful position if they've gone against the agreed contract. Richard, how much do you recommend spend on PPC for your very first products per day or week or month, and for how long? So this is quite a difficult question to answer because it's kind of a bit like how long is a piece of string. But the way I do it usually with my low competition products is around $10 a day or $15 a day or pounds for your first week. And I do that with an auto campaign or something just to see how it's going. But the point is with my products, like I don't like spending PPC money if I can avoid it. With I haven't got any PPC turned on at the moment at all. and I'm still doing really well with my sales. And that's all because my products are low competition. Now, if I was in high competition products, like if I was in yoga mats, like I reckon a lot of the yoga mat sellers don't make any sales organically. They make all of them through PPC, I reckon. So it's kind of the thing I don't want to get into. So I'd rather have low competition products, have PPC when I need it and use it tactically, but find products and niches where you don't need to use it so much. But in answer to your question, usually about 10 to 15 pounds or dollars a day for the first week, and then I do a stock take, see how it's going. Jane, how do you get things from China CE marked? So that's a good question. I don't do much stuff with Europe, so it's kind of not as relevant to me, but you can get inspectors that do this testing for you. And some of the factories in China also have that CE accreditation. Prem, do you do much of this in the UK?
How I dealt with in just last year was that we had some products which needs to be CE marked. We asked the supplier to use the CE icon, and they shipped it to us, and we used a European lab to test for the compliance against it, and that helped really. It didn't cost me much to do the testing in a local lab.
Cool. Yep. Great.
That's pretty good. I think that's the end of the questions. Do you have any other questions? Anyone?
There's one more.
Yeah.
It seems like you're saying you don't necessarily need to spend on PPC to launch low competition products. That's great news. Would you prefer spend limited funds on product versus PPC? Now, so when you're launching, I think you do need to spend some money on PPC, especially just when you're starting out. Like it's just my target is to not have any going in the long run. So usually for the first week or two, at least, I have PPC running. But after that, I hopefully try to keep it at a minimum. Like PPC isn't necessarily that cheap, and I think you can get just as much value from spending that money on other sources like outside marketing, like Facebook marketing, for example. And I think my aim is to have no PPC, but that when you're launching, you definitely need PPC because otherwise you won't be able to get your products in front of anyone, especially whilst you've got no reviews. Bianca, do you recommend to start with the UK, or is it okay to launch in the US at the same time, or US first? So me and Prem are a bit different on this, but personally, I would prefer to start in the US. I think the US is a bigger market for most products. The UK does have less competition, so it kind of goes against my rules. But the US generally does have a bit more competition, but is a much more mature market. So I think if you're just testing something out, you can get feedback on your products a bit quicker. So personally, I prefer selling in the US, and I've thought about expanding to the UK, but I haven't really done it that much but I know Prem sells mostly in the UK, so it's kind of different strategy.
Yeah, that's right. My thoughts on that is it depends on the person and their big ambitions, what kind of ambitions they have, etc. It's very tailored answer for that. so let's see. Bianca, if you can get in touch, I will give you an answer. But for Amazon UK, the biggest benefit you can have is that you will get to feel the product for yourself. It's not just a sample product that comes to you, it's the real product that comes to you. Many people think we can send directly to Amazon warehouse, but I prefer getting it somewhere to my place or to a third-party warehouse, feel it for myself, make any changes to that product as like a value addition, and then send it to Amazon warehouses. That helps on the Amazon UK. That's one biggest plus point to be here. And the other thing is it's a smaller market, so you can expand your platter quite quickly because you will be having the appetite for expanding. It's not as big as US, so it will push you towards building a brand with a big platter of products. That has helped me quite a lot. So these are the two biggest benefits I was saying.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I probably wouldn't recommend doing at first is launching in the European Union just at the moment, because tax is a bit complicated at the moment. It's definitely one to think about in future, because I'm very confident that the tax situation is going to be sorted out, but because it's like unsustainable at the moment. But I think in the short term, I probably wouldn't start on the Europe.
I pulled out all my products from EU. just to reduce the admin.
Right. Yeah. I think it will be fine soon, but not yet.
Not yet.
Jane says, how does PPC work? Basically, you pay per click. So if someone clicks on your advert, then you pay a small fee, and that fee is it's an auction. That's a really high level description of it, but it's quite a complicated area. But there are. I go into this loads in the program. There's a whole section on it. You said, do you recommend selling FBA or fulfilled by merchants? Personally, I do FBA because I'm in America. Fulfilled by merchant can be good, especially if your products are really big. But I think FBA is cheaper generally, even with the fees that you pay to Amazon, because you don't have to go to the post office to ship your stuff. You don't have to package it. You don't really have to do anything. I think it's a bit more straightforward.
Yeah, Richard, it quite depends on your situation. If you have the time to deal with it, then yeah, it's very profitable. Or if you have, if the profit margins has enough margin to pay a staff to do the fulfilled by merchant, then go for it as well. The third opportunity is to use a third-party fulfillment provider. It's technically FBM, but from your point of view, you're using a third-party fulfillment, and that sometimes turns out to be cheaper than Amazon. And the other time when you can do fulfilled by merchant is when you're expecting that number of people will buy in multiple quantities your product, then go for fulfilled by merchant, because that turns out to be cheaper again.
I went to a really, really good trade show just before coronavirus lockdown, which was called Retail Without Borders. And that was all about fulfillment around the world. And there were loads of people there doing like third-party fulfillments. So if you are interested in finding out about third-party fulfillments, Retail Without Borders is a really good place to start.
Drop shipping on Amazon. Topic for you.
Drop shipping on Amazon. It's kind of, I mean, I wouldn't really call what I do drop shipping, because I design all the products myself. I've seen them all. Like, the only thing I don't do is any of the fulfillment. So it gets sent to Amazon's warehouse in America, and then it gets distributed to customers. So it's not really drop shipping in the traditional way of like stuff just coming straight from China. And all the products I make, I've designed myself. None of them are off the shelf, not one. So yeah, drop shipping on Amazon, I think technically it's against the rules. So if you mean drop shipping where it gets shipped from India or China or something like that, you can't do that. That's against Amazon's terms of service. But if you're talking about doing FBA in different countries, then I would really highly recommend it, because I think doing FBA in America is, well, for me, has been game changing.
Yeah, drop shipping is better off Amazon. You don't want to deal with the problems on Amazon. So in drop shipping, the main problem is the customer complaints, right? So, and if the customer complaints are higher on a particular listing on Amazon, you'll be kicked off Amazon pretty soon. So
if you want to learn more about drop shipping, though, there's a really good video that I did with a really good drop shipper who's like 17, and he makes like £1 million a year doing drop shipping, and it's on the YouTube, the AmazinSellers YouTube channel, and it was about 3 or 4 sessions ago. So just check that out.
Yeah,
and it's really good.
Is that everything?
Yeah.
Brilliant. All right. So I just sent us a direct message to Richard. Sorry.
I was just going to say, Prem, so if anyone wants to get in contact with me, then my details are on there. And if you've got, I'm on YouTube, Instagram, and email. And if you've got any questions about the course, then just get in contact with Prem or me, and we can sort that out.
I just popped in one link where you can book my time. So I can scan through your current requirements, what your business situation is, whether you have been in business for some time and you need some help, or you're starting fresh and you don't have an idea, or having been doing product research and cannot move forward. It's quite common. These problems are very common. So please, book a 30 minutes time with me, and I can go through with you on how Teddy can help you. I have seen Teddy is working great with some of our clients. They are doing really well. So go on, book my time. Let's have a chat and see how we can help each other.
Great. Thanks. Oh, there's actually one last question. So how much would a first product launch cost for your first product? How much would you budget for that? It's a really good question, actually. I've done a product launch for under £2,000, including shipping before. It was, the product cost something like $3 to make, and I had a minimum order of 200, and then the shipping was like the same again. So it was like, 1,1400 to do like 200 units. Not like once coronavirus is like kind of cleared up a bit more, that's going to be much more possible again in future. So it's difficult for me to say a number, but it's something that we could work together on if you wanted to, budgeting like that. Yeah.
Brilliant. I think that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for joining in, and thank you, Teddy, for this wonderful presentation. It was very useful and very practical. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
See you. Good night.
Later, everyone. Bye.